Hi guys, it's been a while. Sorry I haven't really been making videos in a while. I thought I said I would, but then life gets in the way. Okay, really I'm reaching out because I actually really tried to do a video for Dark Pill. You left a comment on my video and we were talking about pre-tribulation, eschatology in general. And so, first of all, I've been doing some really tons of research on this. There is so much that you can go down the rabbit holes of. Like, there's so many questions about things like that. I would say one of the things is I'm not sure. Let me just clarify. I am not sure. But I'll try to simplify eschatology into 3 separate groups and where I line up. Now, where you line up could be different. And there's nothing wrong with this. I think the only time when it's wrong is when they tell you you have to be this way, you have to believe this, otherwise you're not a Christian. Okay, so that being said, there's good arguments for all 3 of these. Now, there's categories of these 3 versions, but I'm going to talk about the main 3 branches. If you want to get into more details, Mike Winninger spends a good hour of explaining all 3 of them. The problem is he doesn't go into every single branch. He spends a lot of, you can see how he can spend a lot of time on eschatology, and the reality is it's complicated. So here's the main branches. There's preterist, amillennial, and post-millennial, pre-tribulation dispensationalism. Okay, so basically what preterist means is that these things happen before. So, yeah, that sounds crazy. But they have good reasons for this. If you do research on this, especially they quote Josephus in a lot of ways, and they use a lot of descriptions that Josephus uses, you can find in Revelation. So what I'm talking about specifically is what it means is that after Jesus died, the Christians were oppressed, and that was considered to be the tribulation. And the description of the tribulation goes into a lot of different reasons why this happened. They even use a term rolling up the sky in Revelation. And actually, what's crazy is Josephus, he uses that terminology also in his description of how the Romans, anyways, it's complicated, long. Look it up. It is very interesting. It's fascinating. But I just want to give you kind of the brief thing. So you think that basically it's the brief thing is that everything happened in the past. The tribulation happened in the past, and we preach the gospel to bring in the millennial so that more Christians that are on earth, more conversions, more countries become Christian nations. That brings in the millennial reign. It's a very positive outlook on things. This being said, in my opinion, I don't think this is true even though they have some good reasons, is because some of them don't believe that Jesus is coming back again. This would be heretical. That's a problem. Now, that being said, if you're mainstream preterist, what you mean, you believe that Jesus is coming back, and the millennium, you're bringing back more Christians. I just don't see this. The way I see things, people are becoming less and less Christian. People are becoming more and more secular. So I don't see this really being a serious thing. Maybe that was more true in the 1700s, or let's just face it, when Columbus, Columbus, Magellan, all those explorers who went to like random islands, and they brought Christianity to these places in like South America or North America, or the islands in the Pacific or Caribbean. Yes, Christianity came in, and yes, it changed their life for the good. There's no question about that. But I see more and more people becoming less Christian than more. Okay. The second view is amillennialism. Amillennialism, the basic rundown is that, okay, first of all, let me just say that preterists and amillennials are the oldest views. Okay, so Christians in general have always thought this way for the longest time. So let's start millennials. So what millennialism, it means that the millennial reign started when Jesus ascended to heaven. Now, that being said, it started the millennial reign when he ascended to heaven. Now, the biggest question would be, well, it's 1,000 years. Millennial means 1,000. It's 1,000 years. It's been more than 1,000 years since Jesus ascended to heaven. Their argument with that is that essentially 1,000 years doesn't necessarily mean 1,000 literal years. It means just a long period of time. Now, the question is, well, what about Satan being bound? Or what they basically mean? What they mean is that that Satan will be bound, or was bound, during that time period of Jesus' millennial reign. So you're wondering, well, there was a lot of terrible things going on in the world. How could he be bound? Well, most terrible things are done. Well, most sin is done by our flesh. We don't need Satan to commit sin. We do plenty of things on our own. However, the scriptures say that he will be let loose later, after the millennial reign, for a short time period. Now, this is so there's a lot of questions to this, and I would say that the relationship of the 144,000, and then there's these other group that they talk about, the one that survived. Is it the same group? That's really the question. I would say that in general, all millennials are, when they read the book of Revelation, I see a lot of things as figurative, not literal. So, for example, when they talk about the 144,000 that lists the tribes, different things of Judah, of Israel, what they specifically refer to is the church and not exclusively Israel. I'll tell you why. I'm more inclined to be amillennial. That being said, I am willing to change my mind. There's certain things that just there's certain things that I'm not sure about. I think that there's a lot of questions, and if you read the book of Revelation, there's a part, I think it's 17 or 16, where it basically says that there's a scroll that is handed to John, and basically just telling us that, hey, we may not know these things. That's kind of what I get from that chapter. It's the chapter where God is standing on the land and the sea, and it's really hard to envision these things. So I can tell you a little bit about it, but I don't remember chapter and verse. I'm not that good. I'm sure a lot of other people can do that, but I'm just not. I just try to give you my two thoughts. Okay, so amillennialism. So what they basically mean that there's 144,000 as a church, and so that then when Jesus comes, judgment will happen. Okay, so that's when all these things that are happening, and also a lot of them believe that if you look at the book of Revelation, there's basically three circumstances of events. They all kind of seem to tell the same story in different ways. There's the bowl judgments. There's the I can't remember all these things. I wish I remember everything off the top of my head. There's these different trumpet blasts. Anyways, these three things happen, and they all kind of seem the exact same thing in a way. And I would say that the way I look at it is that these seems to be the same events. They're just retold in different angles. So you can almost, if you think of it this way, you're watching a football game, you're looking at the 50-yard line, you're looking at the 50-yard line, you see the one version of the play, and then you zoom over to the goal lines, and you're looking at the other version of the maybe then you have the overhead cam. All these kind of just give you more information about what's happening, and that's the way I view this things. Now, I also feel that we don't have all the answers. I just don't know. Now, I believe also that, in my opinion, Satan was bound, and that allowed Christianity to be preached all over the world. Now, I'm sorry. So yes, so Satan, it says that Satan will be released in a little while. I believe that Satan has been released. And my feeling is that Satan has been released approximately in the 1800s, maybe 1850s, around those time periods. And the reason I say this is that amillennialism and preterist thought has been throughout the entire time. All the witnesses, all the Christians thought these different things. They debated on different things of when, where, what have you. But then what happened in the 1850s was like kind of a revivalist movement. So we had the Mormons, we had the Millerite movement, and we also had the pre-tribulation dispensationalism. So dispensationalism or pre-tribulation is a new thought, brand new. No one's ever thought this before. It came out approximately in the 1850s, 1860s. And then it was reinforced by the Scofield Bible, which came out in 1909. Okay, that being said, in my opinion, I don't like new thoughts in the Bible. I like early Christians, early thoughts. Closer to Jesus, the better. Okay. So what they essentially believe in, people, you'll see it often. A lot of Christians believe this. I go to a church that's a pre-trib church. Now, this being said, this is not a salvific teaching. So if you do believe this, you don't believe this, it's okay. So pre-trib, what they believe is that they believe in more literal view on everything. So, okay, for example, they believe that the 144,000 is literally, they believe that the Gentiles will be raptured or be taken up to heaven before the Great Tribulation. Very staunch on this. Some will go so far to say that if you don't believe in that, then you're not a Christian, and that is heretical. That is wrong. Okay, so that's what they believe. They also believe that 144,000 Jewish male celibate Jews are going to preach the gospel basically around the world, and that's try to save everybody from that's in the Great Tribulation. There's a lot of problems with this. The problem in general, I would say, is that the pre-tribulation people are very staunchly with this view, and they won't differ at all. They don't even say they don't know, or they have questions, because you can bring to them arguments and they don't see it. A lot of them are Zionists, so they believe in Israel. They believe they're God's only chosen people, and if you say anything negative about Jewish people, let me tell you, that's a problem. Okay, there's many reasons why I don't fall into this category. Number one is the way they describe it. I would say in Thessalonians, when it talks about people taken up, it doesn't say they would be taken to heaven. It says that what it talks about that Jesus will arrive, they will come up, taken up in the air, is how they describe it. I would say the way I see that is that it means that we are going to greet Jesus when he comes. So I don't know exactly how that means, but that's how I take it. Now, if you think that it says that taken up to heaven, that's certainly possible. I'm not saying disagree with it. It also doesn't say exactly when. It's not exactly in the order of events, and it's a totally different book than Revelation, so it's not even really into the picture. So they're not really cross-referenced here, so it's a lot of left to interpretation. Okay, so that's one reason. The other thing that I would say of why I don't believe in pre-tribulation is that when they talk about the tribes, the 144,000 tribes, one of them is Manasseh. So in Jewish, this is all a literal interpretation. So in Jewish anthology, the way you are Jewish is if you have a Jewish mother. You cannot be Jewish unless your mother is Jewish. It's not passed on to the father, it's passed on to the mother. Well, Manasseh's mother was Egyptian. So that would mean that out of the 12 tribes, one tribe is actually Gentiles. They don't look at that argument. They don't even acknowledge that argument. They just continue to say Jewish, Jewish, Jewish. The other problem is that when you talk about Jew, there's really three sections of Jews. There would be what makes a person Jewish. There's three ways, really. The genetically Jewish, so your ancestry. That would be the land, and then the land of Israel, and then the religion itself. Okay. Well, first of all, in the tribes, they had the tribes of, one of the tribes was the tribe of Levi. Well, the Levites did not have land. So, in my feeling, it's a way that John's saying that these are not genetic Jews, and obviously these are not people that own land on land in Judah or land in Israel. Okay, the third thing would be the religion itself. So the religion is very easy to explain. No one's practicing Judaism the way they were even when Christ was on. The temple's destroyed. There is no animal sacrifice. So their form of Judaism is not Judaism. It's not even close. So it can't be reconciled by that. It's not what it is. There is no one practicing Judaism today. Their form of Judaism is a newer form of Judaism that it's not really biblical Judaism. It's kind of what they want it to be. Okay, so that's the problem with the Jewish people. The other problem with this way of looking at things is that I believe that all scriptures was inspired of God, and like the Bible says. So what that means, it also means that the way they go, that certain scriptures don't pertain to some Christians, or are omitted, or doesn't apply, because we're going to be we're going to be raptured anyways. That's what they say. That doesn't make sense. Or it also means that all these other Christians who didn't believe this, none of this information was beneficial to any of the other Christians before the 19th century. That's also a problem, which they don't address. So I would say in general, so I'm just kind of giving you the general. So where I line up right now is really more amillennial. Just because it's more traditional Christian. 2, when it came out, that's a real problem. And 3 is I'm not a Zionist. I think it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that the scriptures talk about not all Israel is Israel. So in other words, not all, when the Bible talks about Israel, it's in the New Testament, it's generally talking about the church. There are some specific areas where it talks about actual Israel, but it's generally talking about the church. Also, Paul describes it that the Gentiles were branched into the vine, they became one vine. So there's all sorts of scriptures that really talking about the church. Everybody who believes in Christ is now Israel. So Zionism and having this literal interpretation is, I just don't see it. I'm not saying that, no, if you believe that, that's fine, but there's good questions that you should ask that a lot of pre-tribs do not ask at all. Just accept it. Now, I'm not saying, so this being said, when they say world events, here's the other problem with pre-tribulation, and I forgot to mention this. Sorry, this one's a really long one. The problem with pre-tribulation also is that a lot of them do not remember what they said years ago. So they connected different events in the 80s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they basically, the end is near, the end is near, an end is near. And it didn't happen. They pointed to all these different things, and it didn't happen. Now, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses who point to certain events and the end didn't happen, they, for whatever reason, are not called out on this. This would be false prophecy, but they're not willing to accept it. So that's why it's very difficult to have this conversation because they're so into this. The other problem I have with pre-tribulation, I keep on mentioning problems, is it doesn't prepare anybody for what if they're wrong. So what if there is no rapture, and maybe the rapture comes later? When essentially we're taken to heaven mid-trib or post-trib. Okay, what happens then? You have the Great Tribulation happening all of a sudden, and you have people complaining, "Oh, I must have did something wrong. Oh, I don't have a good relation." This is setting all millions of Christians up for failure if they're wrong. Now, I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I mean, this is just how I feel. I'm presenting my arguments, but it's crazy to me. Personally, I don't think that. I don't see it. People can always point to things in. When I was a Jehovah's Witness, they would use all sorts of different scriptures and point to different things that say, "Aha, this is the end. Ends tomorrow. The end is near." Which I always thought was funny because if it's a good thing, it means the end is near. If it's a bad thing, it also means the end is near. So this is the same kind of conversation that we're having. So, okay. I know I talked so much. I'm going to let you go. Just some thoughts. Come back to me. Leave your thoughts in the bank. This is especially for Red Pill. We talked about this. I'd love to have a conversation about this. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just presenting my arguments. This is what I think. I think I'm right. Of course, everybody does. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next one.